Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I am your host, Matt Morris. We are live right now on Rumble at Matt Morris TV, as well as YouTube on Matt Morris TV. Thank you all for tuning in today, everybody. We have one hell of a show. You see, today, in fact, just about 90 minutes ago, we got some, dare I say, bombshell news. And no, I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. You see, President Trump has just scored one of his most consequential legal victories, perhaps the single most consequential legal victory so far. He is 9 months into his second term. Today is a big day. You see, and this one isn't even coming from the Supreme Court. This legal victory today actually comes from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which has now overturned a Portland City federal court ruling, ultimately allowing President Trump to deploy the National Guard to the streets of Portland. You see, this is monumental. This is what we have been wanting to see. This is, in fact, probably one of the first or early dominoes that we would want to see fall over if we actually want to see President Trump really clean up the streets of these sanctuary cities, as the liberals like to call them, as the radical progressives like to call them. So, folks, we are going to break down today's news. I can't get the smile off my face. We've been talking about this a lot on this channel here. I know everybody's been waiting for this. This is a big day, and the implications of this, it's going to have a ripple effect. This is a massive deal. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a couple different articles I want to read through. Let's break it down. Let's get into today's show. Everybody, please make sure to like and to subscribe if you are here. Let's get right into this. Breaking news: in a massive legal victory, a federal court has just allowed President Trump to surge National Guard troops into Portland, specifically to quash Antifa, which is a domestic terror organization. Think about how insane this is, that President Trump even got held up like this in the first place. Well, a major backup is on the way. Democrats and far-left activist judges in the lower courts in the federal judiciary have just lost yet again. Let's break all of this down. We have a lot to talk about today. Like I said, the implications here are massive. This will have nationally sweeping implications. Let's take a look. Fox News writes here, Ninth Circuit Court rules on Trump's National Guard deployment in Portland. A three-judge panel, an appellate panel, comprised of 2 Trump appointees and 1 Clinton appointee, heard the case last week. They just ruled about 90 minutes ago. The Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals on Monday ruled that President Donald Trump can, in fact, deploy Oregon National Guard troops into the city of Portland. Now, for the last couple weeks, they've sort of been forced, these Oregon State National Guard troops, to sit on the sidelines. They've been sitting at a U.S. military base about 90 minutes northwest of Portland. They've been waiting, and now they've got the go-ahead as of 90 minutes ago. This delivers a significant victory to the Trump administration as it continues its efforts to send federal forces into Democrat-led cities, despite a string of recent setbacks in other district and appeals courts. Take a look at this. Judges on the 3-member panel ruled 2-1 to authorize Trump's deployment. Judge Ryan Nelson and Judge Bridget Bade, both originally appointed by Trump, sided with the administration in the majority ruling, with the lone Clinton-era appointed Judge Susan Graber dissenting. Quote, after considering the record at this preliminary stage, we conclude that it is likely that the president lawfully exercised his statutory authority in 10 U.S.C. 124063, which authorizes the federalization of the National Guard when, quote, the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Well, pay very close attention to that verbiage, that terminology here, okay, because you've got these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states all across the country that are actually doing everything they can to prevent President Trump from enforcing federal immigration law. So if he's got the green light here, like I said, what do you think this might mean for all these other sanctuary cities, for all these other sanctuary states? Think about that for a second. Let's keep reading. The move has become a political flashpoint as protesters opposing his key policies have clashed with law enforcement. Oregon officials and civil liberties groups say the administration is exaggerating the threat in downtown Portland, while Trump allies insist the guard is needed to restore order. Folks, listen, maybe these Oregon State civil liberties groups, really what that means is that they are just protecting, harboring, aiding, and abetting illegal aliens as well as domestic terrorists. You know, they might have been able to bold-faced lie to the American people before the internet was, like, if this was 1987 or something, maybe they would be able to lie to all of us and say, no, it's okay. Portland is all good. No problem. Listen, we've got independent journalists. We've been tuning in to Honey Badger Mom and Nick Sortor and all these other people down there, Katie Davis support, that have been down there shining a light on this insane behavior, exposing the lies and the hypocrisy of the far left. No, this is not okay. As a reminder, I'm going to show you some more footage that came out of Portland just the other night as a reminder here pretty soon of just how insane these things really are. Let's keep reading here, though. After a federal judge in Oregon temporarily blocked President Trump's attempt to deploy troops to Portland earlier this month, early October, the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals agreed to hear the Trump administration's appeal. The lower court judge had described Trump's action in her emergency order as untethered to reality. That's this Portland federal judge. Trump is untethered to reality. And she said, this is one that risks blurring the line between civil and military federal power to the detriment of this nation. We had this Portland City federal judge. She actually took it upon herself to tell the elected president, the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, President Trump, that he can't protect this country from domestic terrorists. It's just, it's insane that this has even escalated this far. The appeals court quickly stayed the lower court's order, overturning it, effectively allowing President Trump to deploy the National Guard here. The ruling comes as Trump has sought to deploy hundreds of National Guard troops to Democrat-led cities despite stated opposition from local and state leaders. Senior administration officials have argued that the deployment is a necessary step to crack down on what they say is an uptick in violent crime and protect against threats from protesters, including anti-ICE demonstrations in many downtown areas. Not just protesters, far-left domestic terrorists. Violent illegal aliens and far-left domestic terrorists. Also, listen, by the way, opposition from local and state leaders, these people are engaging in open sedition. It's an act of insurrection. They are saying, yeah, we understand there's federal immigration law. Yeah, we understand the American people just voted less than a year ago to shut down the border, to carry out mass deportations, to stop giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens. But we're just going to ignore that. We're just going to ignore that. We're going to, this is like the governor of Oregon here, Pritzker up in Illinois. We're going to tell Portland City Police, Chicago City Police to stand down, to allow domestic terrorists to run amok. We're going to explicitly defy federal immigration law and harbor, aid, and abet illegal alien invaders. Who gives a hell what these local and state leaders have to say? They are insurrectionists. Thank God President Trump has taken this thing seriously. Democrats have countered that Trump's descriptions of what's going on in Portland are hyperbolic and inaccurate, and are merely a legal pretext for Trump to federalize Democrat-led cities. They've used news conferences to highlight declines in violent crime and have argued in court that the effort to deploy federal troops exceeds Trump's authority as commander-in-chief. Well, as it would turn out, it actually does not exceed President Trump's authority as commander-in-chief. As it would turn out, this is what we've seen is yet another instance of the far-left radical federal judiciary trying to do everything they can to undermine President Trump's mandate, his authority, and we're not putting up with it. Thank God for this appellate court here. Until the matter is appealed to the Supreme Court, the burden remains on the lower courts to navigate the high-profile, politically thorny flurry of cases. By the way, this is being appealed to the Supreme Court. By the way, the Supreme Court is looking at this, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So while this right now is just a victory for Portland City, and you know, All the people in Portland, all the far left radical progressives in Portland, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek, the mayor of Portland City, all these people, they are absolutely losing their minds. And thank God. They need to be put back in their place and given a little bit of a reality check here. Okay, you don't get to operate in direct and open defiance of the federal government, aid and abet, harbor illegal aliens, domestic terrorists. That's not how this works. Okay, this is going to the Supreme Court. Another federal appeals court has also weighed in on this dispute. On Saturday, what is that, 2 days ago now, the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals up in Chicago partially lifted a lower court order blocking Trump's federal deployment of National Guard troops, though the decision stopped just short of authorizing their use and instead allowed them to remain at a U.S. Army Reserve base outside the city. So right now we kind of have two different results. Portland is green light, go, 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 send them in, National Guard deployment immediately. Up in Chicago, kind of a victory, kind of a not victory to be determined, but right now the National Guard troops are at a military base right outside Chicago. In Oregon, the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals held about 90 minutes of arguments on the administration's appeal. Trump administration officials argued the troops' presence was necessary to quell mounting unrest and protect against future risk of violence. Question for you folks in the audience. Is that true? Do we need, based off everything you've seen down here in Portland, Oregon, do we need the National Guard protecting the Portland City ICE facility from all these Antifa domestic terrorists? We've all seen what's going on. Yeah. The answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. Thank God for this appellate court decision. Judges on the 3-member panel appeared largely sympathetic to the Trump administration, especially the true Trump appointees, the 2 Trump appointees, who noted presidents do enjoy broad latitude to deploy the National Guard. Yes, they do. Take a look at this quote. This is going to blow your mind. Okay. It may well be that the forces are used in an improper way, but we don't have evidence of that, Judge Ryan Nelson, a Trump appointee, said during the arguments. Trump's decision to call up the military doesn't strike me as a glaring overuse on its face. The panel's majority otherwise did little to disguise their skepticism of arguments presented by Oregon Assistant Attorney General Stacey Chaffin, including that Trump's assessment of violence in the city did not justify federalizing the National Guard. So these 3 appellate court judges, they were not having it. They were not having any of this far-left progressive baloney. They said, this is ridiculous. This is the president. He can do this if he wants, obviously. Chaffin, the Oregon Assistant Attorney General, argued that the protests in Portland are a far cry from a definition of a rebellion. Hey, listen, sweetheart, your entire state is in rebellion. Your entire state, every single one of these sanctuary states and sanctuary cities are a rebellion. They have chosen openly and defiantly to not enforce federal immigration law. Listen, Chafin, listen, lady, you should be lucky that President Trump is only deploying the National Guard right outside the Portland City ICE facility. You should be lucky they're not taking over the entire damn state. Okay, seriously, you want to talk about rebellion? Let's talk about insurrection. That is what's going on here. It is, listen, I'm a young guy, I'm 31. It is astounding to me that these sanctuary states and sanctuary cities have gotten away with this for as long as they have. We've just had every single president prior to President Trump turn a blind eye to this for like 60 years. It started in the 1960s. What in the living hell is going on? How have these sanctuary states and sanctuary cities become so absolutely brazen? How has this gone on for so long? Thank God President Trump is doing something about this. Rebellions are, quote, unusual and extreme emergencies, Chafin said. She noted that the bulk of complaints by local agents are focused on them being short-staffed. Administrative or personal concerns, she said, are, quote, not a reason to bring the military into the streets of Portland or any other U.S. city. Full deployment, that's what's coming. Too bad for you. Still, the court appeared poised to side with the Trump administration. This is what I want you to listen to. Everybody listen up. If you're only tuning in halfway, listen to this. Quote, I'm not sure even President Lincoln would have been able to authorize the use of force right now if his actions were to be this scrutinized under, quote, much more stringent reviewability standard implied by the state of Oregon, Nelson noted shortly before the court adjourned. One of these Ninth Circuit Court appellate judges said, listen, in the state of Oregon, not even Lincoln would be able to exercise his authority under the insane rigidity and pushback from Oregon State. He's saying these people are insane. He's saying these people are absolutely out of their gourds. I am so happy they have ruled this way today. The Ninth Circuit is one of several appeals courts that has weighed Trump's plan to send National Guard to the Democrat-led cities in recent weeks. And thank God they have allowed him to do so. Now, we have another article here, right quick, I want to show you. This coming out of Breitbart. And I want to read this to you. It adds some extra context and extra information here. It was the second time the Ninth Circuit Court, despite its reputation as a liberal bastion, overruled lower courts and allowed President Trump to exercise his constitutional powers as commander-in-chief. The first time they did so was in California. So President Trump is not only racking up win after win after win, victory in the U.S. Supreme Court, the highest law in the land. By the way, President Trump, since April, for the last 6 months, Trump has racked up 26 consecutive back-to-back Supreme Court victories nonstop, because you have time and time again, we've seen lower, radically progressive federal court judges say, actually, President Trump, you can't do that. Overstepping their judicial boundaries, the Trump administration escalates it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, what are you guys doing down there in the federal courts? This is Trump. He's the president. He can, in fact, do this. Appeal after appeal, victory after victory, 26 consecutive Supreme Court victories. And now these lower courts have gotten so brazen, they've gotten so out of control that now even the lower federal appellate courts, in this case, Ninth Circuit Court, is saying, listen, what are you guys doing here? This is President Trump. He's the commander-in-chief. If he wants to deploy the National Guard to combat domestic terrorists on the streets of American cities, he can do that. NPR reported, at National Public Radio, a divided federal appeals court for the Ninth Circuit today overturned a temporary restraining order put in place by a federal judge in Portland, removing the legal impediment that was preventing the Trump administration from sending National Guard troops into Portland. Quote, after considering the record at this preliminary stage, we conclude that it is likely that President Trump lawfully exercised his statutory authority, which authorizes the federalization of the National Guard when the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Once again, I'm going to highlight the verbiage. Listen, the terminology being used here. When the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States, we have federal immigration law. Okay? We have a republic here. We have some amount of democratic process in this country. We've got a bunch of House reps, senators. They got to push stuff through Congress. These bills, President Trump signs off on them. In this case, previous presidents have signed off on federal immigration law. These sanctuary states have said, we're just not going to enforce that. We know that we've got federal immigration law, many of them on the books. We're just not going to enforce any of them. Meaning that President Trump has been unable to use regular forces to enforce the laws of the U.S. What does that mean now? National Guard inbound. Okay. Now, like I said, this previous article we just read through here, it talked about this case in Chicago, Illinois, where it was kind of a semi-win, but kind of a semi-loss. Well, President Trump, the Trump administration, actually 3 days ago requested the Supreme Court step in, get directly involved. Trump has, and by the way, the Supreme Court has agreed to go over this. So now Trump has verified victory in Portland, Oregon. The National Guard is going in maybe tonight. I don't know, very soon. Beyond that, this situation in Chicago, Now this is going up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is going to go through this. They are going to issue a ruling. They have confirmed. And I think the way things are going, President Trump, depending on where the Supreme Court ruling goes, and maybe they will be influenced a little bit by what the Ninth Circuit Court has just determined earlier today, 2 hours ago. I don't know what's going on with this webpage here. But anyway, listen, things are looking good. Okay, once the Supreme Court gives their ruling, nationally sweeping, President Trump will be able to deploy the National Guard wherever he wants in the country to combat Antifa domestic terrorism. Attorney General Pam Bondi, a couple hours ago, about 90 minutes ago, weighed in on this. She said today, the Ninth Circuit Court found that POTUS, President Trump, does in fact have the right to deploy the National Guard to Portland, Oregon, where local leaders have failed to keep their citizens safe. Is that true or false? That is true. This follows hard work by the Justice Department attorneys and helps reaffirm a simple truth. President Trump is the commander-in-chief. We will continue fighting and winning in court to defend President Trump's agenda. The people have voted in 2016, in 2020, and in 2024 for law and order to shut down the border and to deport all of these people. And now it's happening. Thank God. We gave Trump a mandate. He won, by the way, he won that election 3 times. 2016, 2020, 2024. He's the first president in like 80 years to win the presidential election 3 times. He did it. And now the mandate is getting enacted. Thank God. Nick Sortor, who has been down on the ground on the streets of Portland many times over the last couple of weeks, actually chimed in. He said, it's time to take back Portland. National Guard deployment in Portland is imminent. We have 200 National Guard troops ready to go, ready to be deployed. Over the past 3 weeks, the National Guard troops have been specifically trained for this deployment in use of force, crowd control. They are on the way. And as a reminder, I want to play for you folks what exactly has been going on the streets of Portland. Take a look at this. I'm going to put this up on the full screen here. This is not a little bit of civil unrest. This is what a domestic terrorist Antifa insurgency looks like. We have seen this almost every single night, just about every single night on the streets of Portland for months. They are throwing tear gas back at the ICE facility. We've had federal officers get assaulted. We've had journalists get assaulted. We've had the Portland City Police arrest independent journalists for trying to cover what's going down here. Portland City Police has been playing coverage for the illegal aliens and for the domestic terrorists, Antifa. This is absurd that things have gone on this far, that they've gone on this long. Now, in just a moment, I want to pull up some super chats. With this one, I want to see what you folks have to say about this. So I'm pulling up the super chats right now. But this is what has been going on the streets of Portland. And we've been tuning in here for weeks now, covering this stuff. Still, you've got folks in denial saying this isn't happening. We've been watching this for weeks, for months. Really, for months. We've had numerous Antifa members get arrested. We've had domestic terror charges filed by the federal government. And so now, we are right outside the Portland City ICE facility. Any day now, could be any hour, we will have National Guardsmen standing in front of this facility, protecting it, making arrests from domestic terrorists. And thank God for that. Now, of course, like I said earlier, members of the far left are absolutely melting down today. There's a clip I want to play for you coming out of MSNBC, MSDNC, sometimes we call it. Bear with me. I just want to tune into the meltdown here because you know they are losing their minds. Take a look at this.
Something and then explain why functional.
Oh, that's going 2 times speed. Okay, hold up. Restart this. Turn up the audio. Let's touch base here.
Something and then explain why functionally it is the same. This is a stay of Judge Immergut's opinion, and that's why it reached the Ninth Circuit as soon as it did, because this is an emergency motion to essentially pause her order. But But as a functional matter, you are absolutely correct. It has the function of overturning her order and thereby allowing the president to send the National Guard back onto the streets of Portland. And Katie, I want to read, if I can, just from a little bit of the beginning of this 93-page opinion. It says, after considering the record, and by the record they mean all the factual evidence at this preliminary stage, we conclude that it is likely that the president lawfully exercised his statutory authority under 10 U.S.C. section 12406. That's the statute we've been referring to as Title 10 when we have conversations about the National Guard deployments, which authorizes the federalization of the National Guard when the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. And this is the important part. The evidence the president relied on reflects, quote, a colorable assessment of the facts and law within a range of honest judgment. We thus conclude that defendants are likely to succeed on the merits of their appeal, basically saying that when and if a court considers all of the record in this matter is tried and it gets back to an appellate court through an ordinary process where they have full briefing and full evidence, that they still think Donald Trump is likely to prevail there because he has the discretion to determine as the president within a range of honest judgment when it is reasonable to deploy the Guard.
This is what you and I were talking about last week.
He is the president. He is the commander-in-chief. The American people have voted time and time again to shut down this type of anti-American, seditious behavior. This is an insurrection. This is an insurrection. In fact, I hope beyond the National Guard deployment, I'm still fingers crossed waiting for President Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act. This is a national insurrection being executed by these far-left, radically progressive sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. Now, I have to highlight this term sanctuary. These cities have only been providing sanctuary to illegal aliens that should not be here and far-left domestic terrorists like Antifa. For all of the hardworking, actual American citizen, tax-paying Americans that are actually contributing to this country, have they been receiving sanctuary in these states or in these cities? No. Their life has been flipped upside down. Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, the list goes on and on. These cities have become hell on earth for hardworking taxpaying Americans. This is an insurrection. It needs to be shut down. It should have been shut down decades ago. This sanctuary city dynamic, and thank God now we are actually putting an end to it. Now, I want to say real quick, thank you everybody for being here today. Please do me a favor. Make sure to like and make sure to subscribe. It really does help with the algorithm and everything. Really, it means a lot. What I want to do now, I see you guys have been doing super chats this entire time. I want to take a look and see what you folks in the live audience have been saying about this. And good Lord, you guys have been saying a lot. Merlin, he says, let's go. Are you guys in fan of this? Are you guys in favor of this? Are you a fan of this appellate court ruling today? I sure am. I saw this news 90 minutes ago. I couldn't get the smile off my face. Average Gamer says, still tired of not winning. We just say, we've been racking up a lot of wins, a lot of W's lately, and it feels good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The Supreme Court said, hold my beer. You know what, Pam? Pam in Wonderland, the Supreme Court is chiming in on this here in the next couple months soon. The Supreme Court is in session right now. This is an emergency case. It's gone up to the Supreme Court out of Chicago. President Trump can deploy National Guard to Portland. What about Chicago? That's going to the Supreme Court. We're going to have a ruling soon. And I have a feeling it's not going to be a complex case, okay? The Constitution here is pretty damn clear about what the president, the commander-in-chief, can do and cannot do. He can do this. We've got domestic terrorists and illegal aliens. This is an insurrection. Leon Smith says, God bless what you're doing, Matt. Keep up the good work. Get yourself a new hat. This is my new hat today. You might notice I've got a new hat. This here is the old hat. It's not exactly doing too well. My little puppy Argos destroyed that. You know, I'm just so fortunate everybody here is tuning in. We are taking the country back. We are putting America first. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're taking the country back. There's no other way to put that. Sean, thank you, Leon. Sean says, Matt, you're the coolest and most handsome streamer. Listen, you're making me blush. I'll tell you what, Sean, have you looked at the live chat today? We have a lot of pissed off liberals in the live chat. Have you noticed? I haven't even acknowledged them today. You can tell they're coming in here. They are mad. They're saying, oh, ICE is Gestapo. Now the dictator Nazi President Trump is deploying his ICE Gestapo, his National Guard Gestapo, his secret police to the streets of Portland. Listen, shut the hell up. We are done getting browbeaten by members of the far left and gaslit and emotionally manipulated. Meanwhile, our country is destroyed. We are done. We're standing up. We're taking the country back. You call us whatever the hell you want. Who cares? It does not matter. We are making the country great again. We're putting America first. Thank you, Sean. Wrath of Paul says, wait, I thought kings don't bother to appeal to a court. Yeah, curious how that works. Yeah. I feel like normally a king wouldn't really care about the appellate courts, but here we are, and we're winning. Michael Howard says, yes, seriously, can't believe that's a question. They haven't done anything for the Chicago people, and they live in fear. The prisoners run wild until the guards show, and you can take that to the bank. These people living in sanctuary states and sanctuary cities, they have been terrorized for long enough. And so thank God President Trump is intervening. He's really saving these states and saving these cities step by step, day by day. I'm with you. Thank you. We got to put an end to it. If you turn a blind eye to evil, evil just grows and manifests in a more powerful way. We're done. We're done burying our head in the sand. Jump for Joy says, Matt, I do not find a press release on the White House website. What are you reading from and where did you find the info? Add links, please. Well, this was on Fox News and Breitbart. Everybody's talking about this. You can just Google it. It's right there. Everybody's talking about it. This is the biggest news in the country right now. Thank you, Jump for Joy. I appreciate that. It's everywhere. Paulie Puree says, Matt is highly talented with his golden voice speaking ability, which is clear and professional, and his good... You guys are trying to... Listen, are you guys flirting with me? You know that I'm married. Okay, I don't know. This is the second or third super chat. You guys are too nice. Hey, I am married. I'm happily married. Okay, no, I'm kidding. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm very fortunate everybody's here tuning in. Today is a very happy day. I'm very happy today with this appellate court ruling. Thank you very much. Martin D. Turner says the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is one of the most leftist, so their ruling is wow. I know. This is a big deal. Even the radically progressive lower courts are saying, okay, this is enough. That's how you know. Kevin Stankiewicz, he says, when do we arrest treasonous mayors and governors? You know, I'm not exactly holding my breath for that. I think that probably will not happen. However, should that happen with some of these mayors? Should that happen with some of these radically progressive politicians? I think so personally. That's just my opinion, and I'm not holding my breath. But yeah, I'm with you. I do think some of these people need to be held accountable, criminally or legally in some way. Yes, I agree. The Average Gamer says, I have noted your ruling. Good luck enforcing it. President Abraham Lincoln. Well, that quote you're talking about was actually not Lincoln. That was President Andrew Jackson with a situation going on in the state of Georgia. But I appreciate your point. That was Andrew Jackson. The Supreme Court, we don't need to get into the whole details of that. The Supreme Court issued an incompetent ruling, and Jackson said, I have noted the ruling of the court. Now I will let them enforce it. And then Andrew Jackson went about his day. He just ignored the ruling. That was Jackson. By the way, Jackson is one of my favorite presidents for other reasons. Maybe that reason, but also other reasons as well. He's one of my top 3 presidents. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. Thank you very much. Martin D. Turner says, this is what I voted for. Real quick, yes or no? Is this what you folks voted for? To liberate the sanctuary states and to liberate the sanctuary cities. Is this what you voted for? To quell the insurrection here? Because that's what's going on. Yep. Me too, Martin. Michael Howard, he says, I can't believe those idiots think they stand a chance. It blows my mind. They think this hasn't been going on. Well, I'll tell you what, listen, like I said, as a nation, we get what we tolerate. As a nation, we have tolerated this type of anti-American, subversive, seditious behavior for 60 years. I'm not surprised that Antifa thinks they're going to get away with what they're doing and that these sanctuary state governors and sanctuary city mayors, I'm not surprised that they believe they're going to get away with this because they have been getting away with this for 60 years. We need to stop it, though. That era has got to come to an end. We got to take the country back. And we are. Thank you very much. Martin D. Turner says, Marxist shills, nothing but communists, MSN, BC. Yeah, that is what they are. That is what they are. These people do not give a rat's patootie about what is good and what is bad for America. Justin says touching that gas plus throwing it back is a federal offense. I know that was a big no-no. What you saw, they're throwing the gas back at the ICE agents back at the facility. Big problem. Thank you, Jeff H. This is a massive super chat. Thank you very much. $49.99. He says, "Go, bro. Keep us up to date. We are back. We are full steam ahead. We are full steam ahead every day, 7 days a week." A couple months ago, I was planning out my schedule. I was saying, I guess I'll do 4 or 5 days a week of broadcast. I'll do videos 4 or 5 days a week. 7 days a week. No rest, no breaks. We got it. There's too much going on. There's too much at stake. And so I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Jeff. 24/7. Thank you. Thank you. See, Joni says, let's see if they talk that bold crap now. Go 47. Thank God for today's ruling. Captain Patriot says, martial law, and how do you like my profile pic? Well, we don't need martial law right now because we're going to have the Insurrection Act here pretty soon. And now, I mean, President Trump he's winning his legal battles. President Trump, time and time again, is winning his legal battles. We don't even need to go that far. I think right now everything is fine enough. We're plugging away. And this stuff takes time. The progress is slow, but the progress is being made nonetheless every single day on a day-to-day basis. 11 Bravo says, if it's illegal for the president to federalize and deploy the National Guard, as these unelected inferior court judges say, then my 2 tours in Iraq were illegal. Yeah, yeah. Maybe definitely some hypocrisy here. There you have it. And thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. These federal judges are just so beyond the pale. They are overstepping their judicial boundaries so egregiously. I think back, there's this clip, I like to play it all the time, where Chuck Schumer, Chuck Schumer is on video. This was an interview he was doing with ABC on national TV. He was saying that, during the Biden era, the Democrats strategically appointed 235 lower federal court judges across the country in preparation for President Trump. They were worried that President Trump might win the election in 2024. Spoiler, he did. And so in preparation, just to be prepared, in case he did win, during the Biden years, the Democrats strategically appointed 235 radically progressive, far-left federal judges all across the country in order to kneecap and undermine every single thing that Trump might do if he won. He did win, and that's what we've seen. This is all part of the Democrats, the radical progressives' premeditated plan. Chuck Schumer admitted to this just probably 11 months ago in an interview on national TV. We know exactly what they're doing, and now we're actually smacking them down, thank God. Martin D. Turner says, No Kings was supposedly 7 million out of 190 million voters, 3.5% of voters. Listen, 7 million, they might have had 650 or 700,000 people across the country. Even that's being generous. 7 million? You guys saw that they were using fake footage from a women's march 9 years ago or 8 years ago, trying to pass off 8-year-old footage as what was going on during this No Kings March. They're just lying through their teeth, trying to do everything they can to make their movement seem grander than it actually is. Nobody's buying it. We can fact check all this. We've got the internet these days. We've got the independent media. Baloney. And so thank you, Martin Turner. I appreciate that. JRG Projects, he says, the National Guard should deploy canine ICE units. The left got after Hassan for abusing his dog, so you leftist, you wouldn't hurt a canine, would you? And here's the problem, though, is they will. I get the point. These people have no problem beating up a dog or killing a dog, in their terroristic activity. So I'm a big time dog sympathizer. Maybe we shouldn't be deploying the dogs just because we know that they will. We know that they will. Thank you for that. No, I understand the sentiment, though. Thank you very much. Now we have another big super chat here from Joseph over here. We're wrapping up the show from Joseph, and the final super chat of the day from one of my favorite viewers here. She says, this is from Raya Eagle Wing. She says, great work, Matt. Thank you. Best channel. Amazing Patriots. President Trump winning. Remember when President Trump said we're going to keep on winning? Bigly. We're going to be winning so much you're going to get sick of winning. Are you sick of winning yet? I'm not. I could go for a couple more wins. Maybe a couple dozen or a couple hundred more wins. And we are racking up these wins at light speed these days. We were talking about the Supreme Court a little bit in regards to this National Guard deployment capacity in Chicago, which will have national implications, by the way. But in the next month and a half, the Supreme Court is going to be issuing some other massive rulings, probably the most important of which is relating to birthright citizenship. Folks, we might be rid of birthright citizenship by the end of the year. You want to talk about a Thanksgiving present? You want something to be thankful for this Thanksgiving? A little Halloween trick or treat, a little treat for Halloween, maybe a Christmas present this year. Let's get rid of birthright citizenship. That is on the Supreme Court docket. They're going to pass that ruling any day now. Could be any day. They said they're going to have it out the door by the end of the year. So at some point in the next 2 months. Now, beyond that, also we're talking about, we're getting a little bit tangential here, but we're talking about overturning this specific component of the VRA, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which the Democrats have been abusing for 55, 60 years now to jam pack as many minorities into voting districts as possible. They're racially gerrymandering voting districts. As such, they arbitrarily have an extra 20 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. That seems like that's getting tossed out. Folks, like I said, there's a lot of wins. We are winning a lot lately. And I think the wins are still yet to come. We still got a lot more to look forward to here. But folks, that is going to be a wrap for today's show. I had to go live and talk about today's Ninth Circuit Court Appellate Court ruling. This is a massive deal. National Guard in the streets of Portland any minute now, any day now, soon. And soon, perhaps the entire country as well, depending on this Supreme Court ruling. Everybody, thank you all very much for tuning in today. I want to say thank you, everybody, for being here. Please make sure to like and to subscribe. We've been on Rumble, Matt Morris TV, YouTube, Matt Morris TV. You know, I suppose I should do this one final request of the day. If you guys have not followed me on Twitter here on X, make sure to follow on X. That's a big deal. I appreciate that. I will see you folks tomorrow. I'll see you folks tomorrow. Until then, everybody, God bless. Stay safe. Thank you for being here tomorrow. I'm sure we'll have some more big news to talk about. And I'll see you folks then. Have a good night, everybody. And I'll see you folks tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. And as always, stay safe.